Hello, and welcome to the Community IT Innovators Technology Topics Podcast, where we discuss nonprofit technology, cybersecurity, tech project implementation, strategic planning, and nonprofit IT careers. Find us at communityit.com.
Welcome, everyone, to the Community IT Innovators presentation on moving an office, an update on what has changed and what you need to be aware of in terms of newer IT. This is an update to our previous webinar, Planning an Office Move, which is still full of great advice and suggestions, but it did need an update. For example, we previously talked a lot about moving your servers, and many nonprofits don't use servers anymore. So there are different IT considerations when your organization is entirely or mostly operating in the cloud. And the office moves that we've been involved with over the past year have involved lots of nonprofits either moving out of an office altogether and going entirely remote, or downsizing into a smaller office or maybe shared office space. So we thought it was a good time to address some of the IT office move issues that we face now after the pandemic changes to working from the office. My name is Carolyn Woodard. I'm Marketing Director at Community IT, and I'm talking today with William Maxwell and Rick Alloway, who are senior engineers and both have worked at Community IT for decades. Between them, they have done too many office moves to count. You can find the video, podcast, and transcript of their earlier webinar on our website. And I'm going to do a brief recap of it if you missed it. So we recommend getting started on your office move as soon as possible. The sooner the better, even if you're not planning to move for a year or more. And so as some of the items in our ideal timeline, at least 6 months out or more, you should be cleaning up and assessing your IT, especially your equipment. Especially if you've been in an office for a while, you might have a lot of stuff piled up that you aren't going to move, you're going to recycle it. So start going through it right away and organizing what you are going to move and what you are going to get rid of. This will also help you plan for any equipment that you're going to upgrade and help you understand your needs for space in your new office as you search for that new office space. So you might not need as big of a locked closet for servers as you needed in your old office, but you probably are still going to need some locked space. So keep that in mind. 3 months out, you're going to be dealing with your vendors and your staff. So at 3 months out, you probably have identified your new office space or are close to finalizing it. You will start to be able to work with the new landlord and your new vendors, like your new ISP provider. You will also want to start informing your staff of what you expect to happen during the move, how much downtime they're going to have, if they will have new phone numbers, new laptops, all of that stuff. The more you can prepare your staff, the better, even though you should expect there will still be people who will be unprepared or will have last-minute requests or hiccups. 1 month out, you need to know who is moving what. At 1 month out, you should be assigning responsibilities and forming a moving team. At this point, if you have more IT items that you can't decommission and recycle until the day of the move, you should be arranging a pickup or a donation. You also need to plan the security of the move, both your physical security of the valuable and fragile equipment, but also preparing your staff for heightened cybersecurity during your move. You'll also want to identify the staff who will need additional assistance, either because of their role, their relationship to technology, their relationship to your organization, or for any other reason. You want to get them functioning in the new space as painlessly as possible, even if that new space is that they are still working from home. But when the office location changes, there may be something that doesn't go seamlessly. And we still recommend doing backups of your internet for the actual move, so that is something that needs to be planned in advance and carried out the week before the move. And of course, you are using good cybersecurity and doing backups remotely of your data and your systems. And that, of course, you would need to do before the move. And then it's pretty easy to restore after. The day of the move, what can be wrong? Be prepared. Always, 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 always have the internet functional at the new place before you're moving any staff. Take care of the staff because they're like your clients. They are expecting the move to be disruptive and nothing ever goes perfectly. But if you can support the staff through this move, they will be amazed and helpful. And definitely plan to buy pizza for the folks who come on moving day and are actually carrying all the boxes around. So our earlier webinar gets into some detail about wired versus wireless, how to plan out an efficient space, how to use flex space. All of that is changing as wireless is getting used more and more. But we still recommend some hard wiring, as Will and Rec are going to talk about in a minute. One of the great things about that is changing recently that is absolutely helpful to moving is having so many people working from home or able to work from home. So they really shouldn't see a huge impact on moving day itself. And in fact, if you have staff who regularly work in the office, but they can work from home for a few days as you move, they will also be able to be more productive than they would have been in a past office move. So a lot of the changes over the past few years are helpful. So now I'm going to ask Rick and William some questions we've been getting from clients in the community about IT and office moves. And ironically enough, they are doing this interview during the first days of community IT being in our new offices that we just moved to. So they have some firsthand and immediate knowledge of how to move offices now. Rick and William, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Rick Alloway. I've been with community IT for 17 years and have done, I don't even know, at least over 40 office moves.
I'm William Maxwell. I've been here for 21 years. I lost track. And I can't tell you how many office moves I did. There's a lot of those too.
The first question for our update is, when you are downsizing or closing your office completely, do you guys have some advice for when you are leaving an office?
Let's see.
Well, we're kind of doing this ourselves right now. As we moved into a new office space and we're downsizing. I think the first thing to do is decide what you need in the new office and what you don't need. So you can easily get rid of what you don't need, determine what needs to be recycled, what's going to throw away. And there's lots of ideas to get rid of old equipment of all kinds, including computer equipment. So be creative. I think we did a silent auction, and that's clearing out a lot of our old stuff and getting them into new homes and out of landfills.
Yep. It's just really helpful to get all that stuff out. If you're downsizing, obviously you want to recycle everything you can and not bring old junk to the new office.
Yeah.
You certainly don't want to fill up your smaller space with your old stuff that's never going to be used again. We work with a number of groups in Washington, D.C. that you can either take your stuff to them or they will charge you, but they can come and pick it up and haul it out. Some people will even come and tear down your rack for you. If you just get everything out that's important, they'll come and completely strip it out, recycle it all, pay you per pound for the scrap, or give you certificates of destruction for the server hard drives and things like that. So if you're really short-staffed, there are options where you can pay people to come in and just take care of a lot of the clean out of the IT stuff for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of times there are a lot of, also check with the building that you're leaving to see if they have a recycling event coming up. That's usually a good time to drop stuff off there. But usually the timing means you have to call somebody.
Yep.
What about if you are leaving an office entirely, and also if you're getting rid of stuff? Are there any legal requirements around things that you have to save, or anything that you have to make sure that you do before you recycle equipment or before you get rid of stuff?
So legally, that's all up to your organization, whether you have data retention policies, how long you need to keep old backup tapes or whatever you were using. Some groups we work with have to keep stuff for 7 years for legal reasons and for Freedom of Information Act stuff. Other people, it's just your email. And if you don't care about 7-year-old email, you probably don't need to carry those backup tapes with you to the new location.
Yeah, I think most times your finance team will have a better idea on what they have to keep. And they're usually the team that You have to keep some finance information and maybe some HR information. But yeah, the other members of the organization may have a better idea on what they have to take with them and what they want to take with them. I think it's important to divide the haves and the wants, what you have to have and what you want to have, so then you can more easily clean things out.
Yeah.
And a storage solution, a storage room or storage place is also a good place if you still need to store stuff and you're getting rid of an office. It's often cheaper to just put it into a climate controlled storage room.
But if we're talking about digital storage, then I would not recommend moving the backup NAS or hard drives or whatever to somebody's, home office. You should just get, you can get storage at Amazon or something that for your business, you can keep everything in one place that stays controlled by the business and not by the finance person or whatever in their house. So that's the best way to just get everything into the cloud, get it offsite, and not have it tied to any one person. Other things to think about for breaking down your office, pretty much everyone goes to soft phones. You can still get VoIP phones like from your old office that can work at home, but you usually need PoE or power cords, which are not often, you can't just take the desk phone from your house and plug it in, right? It either has to have a hard wire to wherever your Comcast Verizon modem comes into your house, which may not be where you want to use your phone. And you also need power over Ethernet or a separate cord for it. So a lot of people just switch to soft phones, and there we definitely recommend buy everybody a good headset so they can just connect to their laptop and do their work remotely.
Yeah. Not everyone has a voice grade speakerphone that has all this fabulous technology like the one we're using. So it's best to have a headset. It's cheap. It's also cost effective. If everyone's going home and you're in a voice over IP system, a good headset or even any headset at minimum will help eliminate the bad sounds and audio artifacts you get from just a speakerphone and a laptop.
This seems like a good point. If I can go back just a minute to leaving your office or downsizing it, as you were talking about, can you talk a little bit about servers? In the previous webinar, we talked a lot about moving servers, but that's not always the case now. So can you talk a little bit about that? Is this a good time to go serverless, to go to the cloud, or should you already have done a cloud migration?
It depends on your time schedule. If you have a long lead time if you know when your lease is ending and it's easily 6 months down the road, and that's when you want to move out by, then there's plenty of time to move into Office 365 or a Google or SharePoint solution for your files to get rid of your server. But if you're 3 weeks, 4 weeks, up to a month is probably too late to move everything into the cloud right then and before you move. Sorry to say, it's more complicated than many, but it also depends on how many files you have, how big is your store, what are you currently running it on right now, and everything. So it can be a little bit more complex just to get off of it than to just move it. So you have plenty of time to go through all those questions with people, at least so you know, like, do my computer still need to have my server running on it? What files have to be on site somewhere? Because there are some files that don't do well online. Database files, for example, like if you have to put them in an online database service, and that will take some time to do.
Yeah. Also, video files. Sometimes the communications department has a lot of video files, and if you put them all online, it's a lot more difficult to manipulate them.
Mm-hmm. And it's more costly because they're bigger files.
Yeah, and you're transferring a lot of data, so those people still need to have some sort of local storage if they're going to, be working on them from home.
So it sounds like for some of the.
I was going to say, if someone came to us and said, in 3 weeks we need to move and we still have servers and we're getting rid of our office, should they virtualize their server? Should they move their server to a co-location, or should they try to should they put it in somebody's closet while they do the upload to the cloud? What would be your recommendation?
Well, the co-locations are usually cost prohibitive for small nonprofits.
Yep. And if it's only for a couple months while you do it.
Only for a couple of months. If you're not moving to a new space, you probably have to put it somewhere with reliable internet connection. I want to say there may be some services that will host it for you in the short term, but haven't run into that situation yet. Virtualizing it into Azure might be your best bet, because a lot of that for nonprofits is free. You get $3,500 annual credit, and then it covers anything Microsoft might throw at you, and so you can easily just virtualize it into the Azure cloud or migrate your machines to the Azure cloud as is, like a forklift. So it'll still work while you figure out what you want your long-term solution to be. And I'd have to check to see what the timeline and the lead time is for all that.
I was going to say, as you invest in new equipment that's replacing your old equipment, that's one thing. But if you're trying to do a big change that requires change management, it's probably not a good time to do that while you are also doing an office move. The next question is something that you touched on a little earlier about moving into shared space or supporting remote work from a shared space, perhaps. So are there special considerations when you are moving into shared office space, whether that's an official WeWork situation or just subletting from another office?
Yes, but it's hard to know what they are until you get there and talk to the actual shared space. You know, if it's a larger company and you're subletting part of their office, is going to be a lot different than if it's a WeWork space or something similar. Mm-hmm. We've done a lot of those. I don't know about a lot, but I've done 5 or 6 just in the last couple of months, and we've run into problems everywhere. A lot of the problems are with printing. If you're on somebody else's network, it's hard to segregate. You either need to separate your network out with your own firewall, which can come with its own problems, or you need to be just part of their larger network and figure out how you're going to protect your stuff. If you're in a WeWork space, the IT for the larger company controls all that, and you have very little control. And you have to deal with their IT that might be in another city somewhere away, and they don't answer your questions. And so you really want to minimize how much IT stuff you have. Like in a shared space, you preferably aren't running a server. Like even though you may have space to have one, you really don't want that in somebody else's network where you don't have full control over it.
I mean, if you have your own server or NAS or something, you need a firewall just for running around cables around your office space. But that's all it's going to be good for. No, don't count on any remote access to that server or that NAS.
Yeah, because you're inside the other organization's firewall, and they're not going to be responsive.
It seems like they don't want to do anything. I think they don't want to be that IT person to get hacked in their system for all the other constituents.
Exactly. You're a liability to the large organizations. They don't want to give you any special considerations, is what we've found.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned printing. Like, are there specific workarounds? Like if you're in a shared space and do they have a common printer, or how do you make that work?
Most commercial shared office spaces like WeWork have a community printer. If you can, I would encourage you to try just buy into their system. Don't try to bring your own printers there. Try to get your old provider to buy out your contract or something, because it's better to just conform with their system to get, because it's what's supported and what they'll help you get working. If you start bringing in your own stuff, that's when they start pushing back and like, as long as it doesn't break anything, and then they don't tell you if it breaks something and they turn it off. I think that's something fresh in our minds. Something worked the first day that we set it up, and then it stopped working, and it's never worked again.
That sounds so frustrating. But I think there are many times in life where it's hard. It's probably best and easiest to go with the flow. If you're in a shared space, take advantage of being in a shared space and use all of the pieces of that are available to you. for sure. My next question is about a hybrid work environment, which I don't know how much you guys really have interacted with. But the question was about how to make a hybrid environment work better. So where you have some staff that are in the office and some staff that are working remotely. And probably a lot of the questions are around like running meetings, but are there other IT advice or advice on running meetings that you can give us?
Seen it done a couple different ways. I don't know what the best way is at this point. I feel like everybody's still trying out different stuff. In some instances, it's honestly better to act like you're all remote, to have everybody take their laptop into their office and then have one person run the meeting and one person's presenting at a time, rather than to have 6 people around this table and 6 people all remote and we're all trying to look at the Brady Bunch view, but don't care about them and we're busy having our conversation. It's almost better just to have everybody in their individual Zoom window.
I find that a lot of the companies like Zoom and Teams and Polycom, they're working on technology to make it seamless so that people can jump in on conversations and hear the conversations. Because I think the main barrier might just be that technologies just didn't know this was coming today. And so we're here now and the technology is catching up so that we can have these hybrid meetings. And right now they're focusing on cameras and microphones and speaker systems so that the people remote can hear the side conversation from the people that are here. I think the number one thing is to make an effort, try and see what works for your staff, because a lot of your organizations are unique and you have your own culture. So sometimes the individuals at the desktop work, but sometimes you may need to split it up and have a room for people to come and join into.
It also depends on whether it's a one-person meeting where they're presenting to everybody, or if it's supposed to be a roundtable discussion where everybody's going to talk over each other and try to get in. It makes a difference in terms of how you set up the meeting best.
That makes sense. Are there other IT considerations when you're doing IT support for a hybrid office where there's some IT and systems in the office and then there's a bunch of remote people?
I think the number one thing is to try not to implement any bring your own device for people working from home. If you're not, I would encourage investing in company equipment for the staff working at home, so you know what they're working with at home. As far as headsets and microphones, if they're going to have any calling requirements or need to join meetings, and just laptop, keyboards, and monitors that they need to use. So they have everything they need like they're in the office.
And webcams.
And webcams. Sometimes the laptop cameras are not great. So that's also good advice.
Yeah, this is a little bit more technical, but we've implemented Microsoft Intune to pre-configure a lot of our laptops per client, so that if client A says, hey, so-and-so in Texas needs a new laptop, we already have it configured for that company, and it's shipped straight from Dell to that person, and they're able to log in with their Azure AD credentials, and all the programs that we've already preset start to filter in, and it sets itself up 90% automatically. And I think that's really been helpful for hybrid and remote situations where everybody's all around. The computer doesn't have to get shipped to the main office and configured by IT first and then mailed back out. It can just go straight out. And that even includes our IT remote management software, so that when the user gets logged in, connects it to their home Wi-Fi, we can remote right in and help them with the last 2-3 steps right away.
I think something that may help, and not that I've tried or heard about this, is just a little bit of a stipend to help with internet costs, depending on where they're located. It's mostly where you choose to live is kind of your own thing, but the fact that you can't really come to the office to work is probably something that can't be helped depending on where the staff are. So being able to help them out to get better internet than they currently can get, just so you improve their experience, might help.
Do you guys find that you're doing any counseling on home Wi-Fi setups for people who are working remotely? I know we have an article on our site about it, but I'm sure that people have questions about that.
best recommendation is just know where your Wi-Fi access points are coming from, and whether or not you need a repeater or just run a access point on the outside is kind of where the main solutions lie. That makes sense.
That sounds great. So moving on, we had a question about, in the previous webinar, you had a very good checklist for if you're a year out from a move, 6 months out from a year move, 3 months out, 1 month out, the day of the move. So what has changed on that pre-move checklist? So one question was, do you still need a backup internet connection when you're moving?
You mean when you're in the new office, should you still have a backup internet connection?
Yeah.
The short answer is yes, of course. The long answer is, if all your stuff's in the cloud and everybody can work from home, if your internet's down for an hour or a day or a week, you can get Wi-Fi from Starbucks, you can get Wi-Fi from anywhere, you can just go home and keep working because all your stuff's in the cloud anyway. So it's kind of a cost benefit.
So
if you're running meetings like this, you need, and that's part of your business, then yeah, you're going to want a backup internet in case yours goes down. But if it's just for access to files for staff, you got a lot more options these days.
I mean, yeah, so it depends is the default for that sort of thing. But some of the factors to help you decide whether or not you need it is how often you think staff are going to be in the office, how much, like video calls take less bandwidth than people think. So how much video calls will be happening is an option, is something to consider, but not everything. And whether or not you have anything on site that staff need to get to from other places, not on site. Like if you're hosting a website or some files or a remote server to connect staff into the office for anything. Those are main considerations from whether or not you need a backup internet. And if it's in your budget. If you got a budget and you can get a cheap Comcast connection to back up your very expensive T1 Ethernet, whatever the more reliable ones are these days.
T1, huh?
I mean, T1s are slow but reliable. The federal government hasn't backed anything else. But anyway.
Anyway, most people just use their hotspots on their phone when the internet's down. So
yeah, surprisingly.
Yeah. If you're not saving lives, you can probably get by for an hour with the internet down.
Mm-hmm.
That brings me to the next question, which is about hardwiring. So in your new office, your old office probably had a lot of hardwiring in it. In new offices, are you guys doing that a lot? What's the story?
I still believe in hardwiring.
Yeah, the Ethernet will still be faster than Wi-Fi.
And more reliable.
So minimum, even if you have if you don't have a separate phone system, that means you don't need a separate wire just for phones like you used to. So one wire to each desk location that you expect people to be will be helpful. Two, you do two depending on how they charge. Some charge per location, some charge per wire. It depends on which vendor you're working with. That's a question to ask them. But one is the minimum. And at the very minimum, if you don't want to have any wires, you just do wires to everything that is going to be static, like your wireless access points, your conference rooms, and
your printers.
Forgot about the printers.
Yeah. You still need some wiring, no matter what, just for those stationary devices.
Yeah.
And then I would recommend, once you're doing it, if you're building out a new office, yes, you should have at least one port per desk, just to have it. At the very least, you plug a docking station in for people's MacBooks and their stuff that doesn't have Ethernet ports anymore. It'd still give them a more reliable connection.
All right.
Right. Particularly because all your files are likely now in the cloud, not on your local server. So you need as good a connection to get back out to them as you can get.
Community IT does these free webinars and podcasts for our community, and we love sharing our knowledge and experience. If you have more questions or are having trouble with your IT at your nonprofit, please get in touch with us on our website, www.communityit.com so we can start a conversation or schedule an assessment. Downloading any of our free resources there will get you signed up for our webinar reminders, and you can attend our next webinar in real time and ask our experts your own questions. If you love podcasts, please subscribe and leave us a rating to help others find this leadership resource for nonprofits.